In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. My name is Tom DeSillis, and before we get started, the music from my awesome intro was created by Michael James McGarry. You can follow him at It's MJ Music on SoundCloud, and It's MJ Made on Instagram. And then my logo for my intro was created by Nicole Summers from the Reliably Chaotic Podcast. It's a D&D campaign podcast, a lot of fun. And one more thing, if anybody wants to be on the show, you can just email me at youhadtobethere, dndpodcast@gmail.com. That's DND, the 3 letters. It's also posted in the descriptions on the audio and all that stuff. But sitting here today, I have my guest is Jack Michael. Hello. How are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm good. I'm very good.
All right. Awesome. So, how long have you been playing D&D for now?
So, my friend Kyle Riley Joseph introduced me to it in high school. So I think around junior year, that's when I started. So for like when I was 16, so now about 5 years I've been doing it.
5 years.
Like here and there. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you started at a pretty young age, which is, I mean, it's cool because you have these people that have been playing for years. So you started at like early on. So you're gonna watch this game. This game's gonna evolve, continue, and just going forward. So what was it like for you? Obviously, Kyle was a guest on the podcast, and that's probably gonna happen a lot doing this. We're gonna get a lot of people that have played together and stuff. So what was it like for you, your first time experiencing it? What made you want to, like, he introduced it to you, but what like drew you to it?
So I always knew D&D was a thing. Like this was apparently like the pinnacle of like nerd culture. Like this is where it like began, you know?
Yeah.
So I always knew about it from like shows referencing it, but I guess one of my friends came up to me and it was like, "Yo, dude, this game is so awesome. I'm a pumpkin man, and I got like I'm a big gigantic pumpkin." I was like, "Oh, that's dope. Can I be like a piece of toast?" I asked Kyle this, and he was like, "Yeah, sure." So I was like,
"So you were the toast man." This is kind of cool, you know what? And it's I guess trying to pretend like there's not going to be this overlap is really funny. So Kyle, if on Kyle's episode he talked about this person that played the Toast Man. So I guess that was you, which is hilarious. What's funny about that is my other guest, Kenneth, plays the Pathfinder, and Pathfinder, they actually have a pumpkin type race. So it's kind of funny because he actually reached out and he was like, "For the record, if you play Pathfinder, you can actually have," I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's definitely in the realm of possibilities. Okay, so you wanted to be a piece of toast. So I love that. I think that's kind of what this game is all about, is like the ultimate form of creativity, and like there's almost no like wrong answers kind of. So you wanted to play a toast. If you can remind me, what was the actual, how did that work out?
Okay, so
just real quick, if you can with your microphone, try and pull it actually a little bit farther away, just because it's getting a little buzzy.
Okay, this good?
Yeah, perfect. Actually, that's great.
All right. Cool. Yeah. So the way this worked is that he started out as like, his background was a wizard was like, "I want to start a toast army." So he made a bunch of like toast minions, and this was the only one that survived a bird attack. And the thing is that he uses the polymorph spell to turn into this gnome that has the skin of burnt toast, and he's a bard. So for the most part, I was a gnome that just had skin like burnt toast.
Burnt toast. That's funny. Kind of unrelated, but have you ever played Overcooked 2?
Yeah, I have.
So that's like a whole bread army there. If anyone's not familiar with Overcooked 2, but you're essentially
Oh my
fighting
God.
the
Yeah.
unbread, and it's a bread army. So that's hilarious. Cool. All right. So that was your first experience. Were you like a full-time, I guess, member of that campaign? And is that a campaign that went on for a long time?
So the campaign, from what I know, started off with totally different people
Okay.
that I started to play with, but then eventually the original people left, and then so I was part of this new group that actually finished the campaign.
Okay, cool.
So it sort of was just like evolved to just us as the main group,
Did you
but we
see it?
weren't. Yeah.
Nice. So then so you're with Kyle for many years. Now you're in college now. You're kind of doing your own thing. Do you play, like, did you start another group? Like, what was that like?
So I met some kid. So when I first joined college, I was with this group, like sort of like this, just like a group for school that you dorm together and stuff. And I met these friends. Like, I made some friends, and I was telling them about D&D and how creative and open it can be, because I was telling them about my toast guy and a
Right.
campaign that I made that I DM'd. And they were kind of getting into it. So I was like, why don't we just make characters now, and maybe we'll use them later. So we spent a night together just making like these characters, and true to form, one person did have to choose like the food thing. So one person
like, well, I
was
want to be,
one person was a
pumpernickel.
bacon, egg, and cheese.
A bacon, egg, and cheese. Nice. How did you
Yeah.
skin that then?
So basically, he wanted to be a wizard. So I made it based off of what I know of. So we made him a derivative of a gnome kind of class.
So
you know what I mean?
So he was a bacon, egg, and cheese that got polymorphed into a gnome.
So no, he was just a bacon, egg, and cheese, but he was 2 feet tall. And the way I implemented it so the campaign, I sort of morphed around this character because I was like, it has to make sense,
Right.
So I made this campaign called The Food Conspiracy, and I'm very creative. So this wizard, right, wants to start a food army in this main nation called Main Course, and everything is just based off of food. It's like the food delicacies of all around the world, all mixed into one. There's the royalty that live in the White Castle.
Oh.
And there's farms. One's run by Wendy. One's run by McDonald's.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. What a creative world. How old were you when you came up with all this?
I'm doing this now. So,
you're doing this now. Okay.
So the campaign,
super creative. That's awesome. So
this
is a new campaign you started.
I started it last summer, so we did it last summer, and I want to try to finish it this summer because I want to get like one campaign done under my belt.
Yeah.
So I could just be like, I finished it. They did what they did. I don't know if they're probably not going to die because this is a fun sort of setting that I set up.
Okay.
But it is something I want to get done because my first campaign that I ever did was like serious, and we ended on like the solemnest, like saddest note ever, and we never finished it because I left for college. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So so you have this now world, and so actually, out of curiosity, so in this campaign you're doing is a bread army. Is that related to your character from the other one? Is that like?
Okay, so it's not entirely. It's not like a connection. I don't make the reference because these guys don't really know what I'm talking about exactly.
It doesn't matter.
But
it's for you.
But the thing is that like, what I did was, there all of these different like classes like orcs, goblins, gnomes. I sort of transformed them into food. So I made this group. Like an example, I made this group called the Ravioli Renegades, and they're a bunch of raviolis. They're sort of like a wizard sort of class. So their acid splash is not an acid splash; it's a sauce splash.
Sauce.
So I'm just using like most of the D&D stuff is like,
but that's fine. That's fun.
But yeah, and how they do a long rest or how they rejuvenate energy is that when they sleep, they have to do it in a boiling pot of water. That's how they gain their
They're
so
hell yeah.
And then I set up other things, like there's like the collard greens crew. There was like the slamwich I implemented from like KND, if you know what that is. It's this big like sandwich monster. I made it sort of like an ogre or a giant. Sort of way.
Ogre.
Yeah, and I try to. Yeah, I'm not really much of a combat person. I'm more of like story driven, like investigation and sort of like figuring out clues and gaining like items and stuff. But this food conspiracy is way like is really fun to just create because it's just so fun. You can do whatever you want, like in a way.
So is this pretty much like you went from this one campaign where you played a bread person and now you started writing this one and you've been running this one, or did you have any like one shots or any like more traditional run D&D like campaigns in the past?
So my first ever campaign that I tried to make that never got finished. Well, we never finished, but we did play it. I was full of ambition. I was going against the curve. The joke is that it always starts in the bar. I was like, no, it's going to start on a ship.
Okay.
So I started this like
usually rum on ships though.
Yeah, that's true. So I tried to set up this traditional, like, this is a group of adventurers. They've been together for a while, so they started off at like level 3. They got this mission to go find this missing daughter, and this was like a cut above most things because they're going to this island nation on the ship, and they're going into territory that they're not really familiar with. And it consisted of like it was a weird band of people, and for the campaign that I was doing, they really did kind of stick out. So from Volo's guide, one of my friends was a dwarf ghost, and I didn't know how to do ghosts, but he was going to help me with that one. Another one was a gnome wizard who had a split personality disorder. And another one of my friends was a gargoyle, and the gargoyle was a problem, but I'll mention that later. And then another one of my friends was just a warrior. He was the most normal one out of all of them. Fighter with sword, shield. He was just like, yes, I will save the princess kind of person.
Right. No, sometimes you need that to keep the thing driving, you know? Eyes on the prize.
So he was the most normal, but the thing was that, like, what I set for this campaign was, like, this was going to involve, like, I wanted to, like, limit my monster choice because they're so expansive. So I limited it to devils and demons. So this land that they're going to, the farmers, the villages, they're all scared of like these cultists, these demon worshippers, these devil worshippers. So everybody's really weary of like anything that's unknown or grotesque or weird. And two things happened on the ship that I just had to I told them, you guys might die in this campaign because I was trying to be serious. And my gargoyle person, I said, all right, you're disguised. You're wearing a cloak. You're wearing a scarf because if people see you, they're going to get very scared on that ship because they're, And
so
the
this
first
was
thing
like the start off, the send off. This is where like
This was how I wanted. Yeah. This was sort of a tutorial setting where I wanted everybody to, get to know how I was going to conduct it. And the first thing my gargoyle person does is like, I want to know how far off we are from land. Flies up into the air, ruins his costume. He drops down. He's like, I don't see land anywhere. And then all the people looked around him, shocked.
Right.
And then they bring out weapons. And my friend, the gnome, was like, oh no, he's our pet, sit boy. And he did like a performance check, and and everybody was sort of at unease, but and you would think at that point they'd be like, all right, we need to be a little calm. But then my dwarf guy was like, I don't like being with these guys up here. So he just sort of does a Danny Phantom, goes ghost, and goes to the lower decks.
Oh my god! So
immediate he drops down and he goes to the kitchen of how I drew this sort of like ship, or how and there's a chef there, and he's right in front of the chef, and the chef, he has a knife in his hand, so he throws a knife at this guy.
Yeah, someone materializes through the floor. That's what you do. You throw a knife at him. That's what I would do right now. If that happened here, right now, I would 100% throw a knife at it.
Eventually, the ship captain came out, and there was this whole like fight on like this deck, and everybody was getting mad. And I was like, there's too many people. I don't want to roll for initiative for everybody. So I had to bring out my trump card, which was to bring out the Kraken that destroys the ship, that leads them to this like island off of the island nation, where I called it Tutorial Island, which is just Tutorial Island.
Right.
Because this is how the combat I wanted to teach, because I thought I was really smart.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it like honestly, it just went downhill. By like after that, nothing went how I planned. Nothing was going right.
Probably, honestly, your experience, for me as a player and like a couple times DMing, like your experience is probably super common for a first time DM, because that is the one thing like I have for sure learned from, even as a player, just watching experienced players just take a campaign off the rails because of creative thinking and just decisions. And it really just, the one thing you can never really seem to do is just don't plan too much. Like it's just not going to go the way you expect it to. And people are going to do dumb decisions, and that's just the way it's going to be. And that's hilarious though. And then after that, you were just like, screw this, I'm making a bread world.
Well, after that, like we did continue the campaign, and it was pretty serious, and I love the campaign. Everything that went wrong, it's so amazing. Cause like, it really taught me how to better my current campaign, because, like, there was stuff that I was going to plan for. And like, sometimes, characters are not going to like sit through your cutscene. They're going to be like the boss, he was sort of like doing this whole speech, like, in the middle of it, my friend was like, well, I'm going to throw my knife at him. I was like,
yeah.
So he did, and it landed. I was like,
there's so many instances, like the people I play with, like, caster is going through his speech and just bubble of silence, or like one time guy was about to, main boss kicking off, and I just hideous laughed at him, and it was like, it just, there's so many ways. I've learned though, out of a common courtesy, it's kind of good to just let them finish the monologue, because either someone wrote the monologue, or like they've been practicing it, and like, I just want to, can I finish the monologue before you throw that fireball? Sure. Yeah. So,
no.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking, like, I've actually been thinking there might be like a way of etiquette where like they're starting the monologue and you just be like, hey, I have something ready. I will cut him. Like, just like a common courtesy, like, my character would cut you off, but I'm going to wait to the very end, but I am going to react before we go into initiative, because it does get complicated, because when you're like, they're trying to finish it, but like, you're like, my character would not wait for them to end their conversation and start initiative. We would interrupt it, but yeah, that is, man, that's how it goes, I guess. Nice. What kind of when you, other than a bread person, what kind of characters do you typically go for? Like, do you play that often, or do you mostly DM now?
So I do prefer to DM more.
Okay.
Because when I play, I really do like to control a lot of things. Not like, control how my players die. I like to just like be creative with how things go. But when I play, like it's usually just like small person, like any like halfling, gnomes, goblins, stuff like that. Like those are that's my race of choice. Just because it's like so fun to just put on a small like, yeah, I'm gonna go attack them with my sword. It's like, it's
absolutely.
So
I am also I can attest. I haven't played a gnome, but I do love halflings, because the reroll the natural one is just so, like, when you play a halfling for like months or a year and stuff, and then you switch to another race and you're like, natural one. Oh no, I have to keep that. Like, yeah, you have to keep that now, and like I am partial to that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like the small characters too.
But I am playing currently with a Kyle Riley Joseph campaign, and I'm playing. I was very creative with this one too. It's just one of my friends. I just made it completely. It's him. He's 5'10", little chubby. He's got a t-shirt on. He's got blue jeans on. He's got like sneakers.
Average Joe.
Yeah, average Joe basically. And yeah, so when I get creative, I usually just copy one of my friends' personalities and play as them. So that's how I.
What kind of so human? I'm guessing.
This time it's a human, and I set it up a little funny. So he's a religious person. So he was born into this sort of religious thing, and what he basically worships is this big green thing that's sort of like. He thought he was a cleric. Okay. He's stupid, and he misinterpreted the text. So he's actually a warlock. So instead of cure wounds, he inflicts wounds. You know, stuff like that. So
that's pretty funny. That's also very dangerous.
Yeah,
so are you just hurting your party all the time then?
No. So the thing is that like, so he's very religious. So when he destroys like a monster, he thinks he's curing it. So we had this undead come at us, and he went up to this. He's like, "Oh, my child, calm down." And he put his arm on him, and he said, "Let me cure these wounds." And then basically, monster rips into shreds and dies.
That's
and he was like, blessed.
Oh man. Do you wait? So how? So does he think that he like studied with a religious person and like pledged his allegiance to some sort of god, but it ended up being something more evil?
Yeah, so he worships the god of destruction. He thinks it's the god of creation. And the god of destruction, my friend is really into the Halo series. Okay. So on his t-shirt, he has like a halo on it, and he worships this big green god. So it's just Master Chief.
That's funny. See, he worships Master Chief. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's your kind of your character playing there, and then you're playing this your bread world really is your most thing. How long have you been doing I'm sorry, what was the world called again?
So the nation is called Main Course.
Main Course. Okay.
Yeah. And the whole story is there are curses. So when the whole thing is based around food. So every like place is like a food
I got
place.
that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, how long have you been doing it for?
So we wanted to do it. So we did it.
It was last
we
summer,
started
right,
the idea like last summer we started it, but I did start it like the summer of my freshman year. So I was going through all this planning for this big adventure for that summer. Yeah, I mean like when I like most people are like, why don't you get a preset? And I like to create. I like to do homebrew stuff, but I do use some of the already created stuff as reference. You know, like I just like this barrel. Maybe it's a treasure chest that's already been. Yeah.
Do you draw out maps and stuff like that too? Do you go? How deep do you go with it?
So
I know Kyle was telling me he just kind of like makes stuff up as he goes along, but you seem to be much more methodical about planning and stuff like that.
So I use the Roll20 software. So they have like so they have like graph paper on there. So I usually just like do like sort of graph paper drawings because that works. And I have a key. So colors. So like windows will be blue for that map. Doors will be brown. Stuff like that. And yeah, it's just basically like there are just like those. All right, generic. Tavern template 1, generic house template 2, you know?
Right.
But for the big scale stuff, I would like to really go into it and get really detailed. Like sometimes I'll use like landmarks, like my own, like a police station, right? So I'll just use the town police station's like diagram as a reference and make it based on that, you know? Or and so I like to see what I'm putting my players in now, you know.
Cool. Very, very cool. All right, so let's tell me so you've been playing this for almost a year, so I'm sure you've got some great stuff. So like you said, it's more investigation. Like what kind of stuff do you put in there? Like what is your style then?
So the curses, so there's curses in the food. So when you eat
Okay.
the food, you gain some random curse. An
All right.
example is all these party members have a curse.
Okay.
There is the main guy. His name is Neil Armstrong, and he is a detective. His curse is he can never, ever take these off, wear sunglasses, a fedora, and a trench coat. That is his curse. There's another person's curse. His name is Guy, and that's it. He is a sort of sharpshooter. But the problem he has is that I'll roll a D8, and if it lands on a certain number, one number out of that, he goes blind. So when he's taking a shot. So for a sharpshooter, that's kind of bad. And for the bacon, egg, and cheese, his curse is that he always smells good. So there's always an aroma around him, and and people have to roll a constitution not to eat him. So that's sort of what's. So that's the.
Now, is that players or NPCs or everyone?
Every single person in this world that has eaten a cursed food, and I determined that
No,
how.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
With being in the area of the bacon, egg, and cheese, how often, has he been bitten multiple times? I want to know more about that.
So yeah, so I always try. He's never failed. So people have always passed around him. Surprisingly,
Okay.
I've never gotten one person to be like, "Ooh, delicious," and then pick him up. In a way,
sounds like you need to hire that DC.
But there are times when he's not disguised and he's not cloaked, and you just see this 3-foot tall bacon, egg, and cheese walking around the kingdom. And there was one point where a guard looked at this and he was like, "Is that a big bacon, egg, and cheese?" And my Neil Armstrong character was like, "Huh." And so he basically was like, "Bacon, egg, and cheese? Yeah, I'm a cook, I'm a chef." So he took him, but it's fine. Yeah, and the way to heal this guy is through the story. They found this chef of this town of Notchberry Farm. Notchberry Farm. They found the chef, and the way they heal this bacon, egg, and cheese is the chef just made bacon and eggs, and he just stuffed it into him, and he just regenerated it and healed.
So you just make more bacon and eggs.
If you just make the sandwich,
I can regenerate him every Sunday while I cook bacon and eggs for my wife. So if he ever needs it, I am always packing. That's hilarious. I can't believe no one's he hasn't failed. No one's failed. That's what if you don't. Does he know what the DC is, or do you keep it hidden? What's the DC that you set it at?
I keep it hidden. The DC is. Yeah,
don't
keep
say
it hidden
in case he listens.
Yeah.
But
he might be listening. I did send him the link, but
he might be.
So it's a hidden DC, and it's different for the setting. If it's an enclosed space, it's probably going to be very high. If very low. I mean, you have to roll and if it's out in the open, it's going to be pretty high to
or pretty easy to pass because it's
pretty exactly
Very, very cool. So then, what more about the campaign do you love? Tell me if you got a couple fun, crazy stories.
So what I like to do with my campaigns is that I always like to set up clues and investigation that will lead them to sort of they don't have to follow them, but it will sort of nudge them in the right direction. So the example I have is that they found the Ravioli Renegades by chance because what they did was they did this. They basically, in the previous town, which was called Delicious City, DC for short. In Delicious City, they caused a ruckus in the slums, which I call Rand City, which is Rancid in City. And they basically just were trying to figure out more about the Mad Wizards, and they roped up this this Spanish gnome called I believe Jalapeno or something, and they were just roughing him up, and they tied him up. They're like, "Where's the Mad Wizard?" He's like, "I don't know. Check my desk," and they found some map to Notchberry where there's probably a hidden one of their hideouts, and the guard was like, "What's going on there?" And my team was like, "Well, they jumped out the window, ran to the next place. They got to Notchberry, and at that point, it was like, well, what are we gonna find?" And they went to the police station, and the police station hadn't heard about them yet. And through there, they found out where the Ravioli Renegades hideout was. The Ravioli Renegades gave them a half-burnt map to this, because they were like, they're renegades. They used to be part of the army, now they're not.
Okay.
They're going against it, so they have this half-burnt map of what the dungeon might be and its layout. And they knew where it is. It's under one of these stalls, and basically, they found the stall. And I tried to, like, there are people that know what's going on. There are people that are working with the Mad Wizard, and it's based up to my team to figure out, like, well, who's doing this?
Okay.
What clues could we find? Yeah.
So they're trying to more at this point pick apart who's working with this Mad Wizard that's making all the food.
Yeah. So
people.
Right now they know about head lettuce. And head cat. Yeah. So like the heads of
keep
these.
going. It's fine. It's great.
Yeah. So there's head lettuce, who's head of this one secret hideout, and then there's head cabbage, who they figured out is head of this other hideout, which they are unsure of, but they know it's close by. And yeah, so now they're at Wendy's farm, and they're trying to figure out why the people of this farm are turning dumb. Like, all the workers there are just becoming stupid, and they're wondering if the milk's cursed, if the hay's cursed, if the food's cursed.
Okay.
And there's also a cow missing that is like the prize cow that gives off the best milk. And yeah, that's where we ended up.
Are the curses like removable, but then obviously they still have to eat, so they just keep getting recursed, or like?
Right now, my members haven't found a way to remove curses. Okay. Otherwise, they would have removed the curses that they have. Whether there is, and if they're listening, I don't know.
Are they? What level are they?
So they're at level 3, I believe, right now.
Oh,
so
okay.
they're pretty well into it. They got all this, and what I want to do is I want them to pick up certain items that will help them in, say, like the final conclusion. From town to town, they may find some weird stuff that they could pick up. Like, they picked up the cursed powder from this one place that was putting it in the food. So now they have one source of it, but they don't know why it's doing this and what effects it might cause.
Right.
And yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So you've been playing this. How do you plan on, like, after this campaign is over, do you plan on doing like another like homebrew thing, or do you take a break? Do you have ideas? Like, you clearly, like, what's you like to go really out of the box. It's kind of funny because, like, I know I have this, like, I've heard just this crazy spectrum of, like, the people who started out and the rigidity of some people that play these games is actually, like, kind of annoying, and you seem to have, like, taken it just so past the point of flexibility that there are probably some people that are going insane because of, like, what you do, which is fine. Like, and that's the cool thing is, like, kind of screw them, like, you can do whatever you want. That's the point. There's no right or wrong way as long as everyone's having a good time. But that's yeah. So are you gonna just kind of keep this train rolling of just crazy homebrew ideas? Is that just gonna be your thing?
I do have another one. That's why I want to end this food conspiracy one. So I have one under my belt, so I can start playing with other people on this new campaign idea that I've had for a long time. And it's, once again, I'm stepping up the bar, just for myself. It's gonna be a little bit smaller and simpler because I do want to make, like, small campaigns that are simple that you can get through, but I also want, like, a grandiose feel. So this new one is not even in the world of fantasy, really. It's about a futuristic squad of, like, investigators that have, instead of magic, they'll use gadgets as an alternative. So this is sort of the rough idea that I've been working on. They'll have gadgets, and they're going to investigate this sort of town, and nobody's left in it. It's a ghost town, and it's very weird. and they're going to investigate it, and eventually they're going to find out that something supernatural is going on. And nothing really supernatural happens in the setting that I've set up, and it's basically going to be investigation of what supernatural cause is doing this and why is it doing this. And it's going to be using not traditional D&D stuff. I know OG D&D guys will hate me because I'm like, not only did I get into it on 5th edition, which is the most mainstream of D&D, but I also like just do a lot of homebrew stuff instead of like presets, and like I understand why some people might hate how I do things, but
no, I mean, I don't know. I don't really think it's that big a deal. Like, I don't know. I'm having a good time. I enjoy it, so screw you. Because there's so many people that started with 5th edition, probably because it's like easy to learn. Like, and honestly, it's still really in depth. So like, to think about it being even more complicated, I feel like might turn some people off. So I think, Wizards of the Coast, like I think they went in a good direction, because from what I hear, the older versions were much more complicated, and it's just like it gets to the point where it's, you don't want it to be stressful, you want it to be fun, and that's what it's about. Do you have any, so like during this campaign, has anything gone, because your first campaign something went horribly wrong, has your players in this campaign like threw you for any sort of crazy loops that you can think of?
Well, in every campaign, there's always going to be that one guy that like, because my player Guy, he collects pants. So any person he beats up or puts unconscious, he's like, "Can I take their pants?" And he just puts them into his backpack. Right. But there was, like in the beginning when they were escaping from Rand City, they met this group of guards in the forest, and they were going to have a fight. And what they did was they were like, well, these guys seem pretty strong. So they set the forest on fire.
Okay.
And they trapped the guards in there. So there was like this one guard that had this big battle axe that was basically like trying to attack them. And he got mutilated. His eye is missing. And you could hear his scream. Like,
oh, God.
And the forest is just burning. They didn't put it out. So it's probably still burning as they're in this farm setting. So that's one of the times I was like, because my friend was like, my wizard, the beginning chief, was like, I'm gonna fire spell, and
oh god,
well, he fire spelled the tree, and I was like, well, it's dry outside, it didn't rain the day before, and it's gonna spread.
So burn down the whole.
Yeah, so that was like one of the times that they've like completely gone against the curve. Another time they went against the curve is like with Knotberry. The thing about it is like they have fruits, and these fruits will like temporarily increase your strength if you eat one, or they'll increase your like intelligence. And they have all these different stalls set up for each different one. And one of my friends cut the line, because there's a big line. It's like like the amusement park. People are lining up.
So there are these fruits that do what? What do they do? You said.
So there are these fruits, and basically when you eat them, it feels like a rush, a roller coaster. And what they'll do is like one fruit will increase your strength, so you'll become even stronger. Yeah. So they're like modifiers, but they feel so good, like a roller coaster,
almost like potions. Yeah. Like temporary boost.
Temporary feeling, like. Because Knott's Berry Farm is a like amusement park, so they'll feel like roller coasters. That's what the kind of theme was, yeah. And one of my friends cut the line, and the guard. This is why they went to the police station. So the guard had to come by. He was like, "You cut the line," and my friend was not gonna be nice. He has a high intimidation factor, so or skill. So his first thing was like, "Get out of my sight" or something. Like,
right.
He has like lines set up from noir films, like just that he could read off of. So he said one of those lines.
So just like, I'm getting too old for this. And yeah, that kind of stuff or whatever.
Failed the intimidation, like completely failed. And the guard was like, "Are you threatening me?" And he was like, "Yes." And then they locked him. And they locked him up. Yeah. And yeah, that's like, but I have been able to keep it pretty tame. There was the jailbreak where they released a bunch of criminals that they didn't have to.
Was this the same jail that your friend went to?
Yep, same jail in Notchbury.
Let's dig into this. So your friend, it was Guy, you said?
So my friend is Guy and Neil. They both got
no.
they both
Which was the one that got arrested?
Oh, Neil Armstrong.
Okay, so Neil Armstrong gets arrested because they want to get to these delicious or the berries and stuff, and he cuts the line, fails that intimidation, gets arrested. So while he's in the jail, then what happens? What leads to a prison break?
So the bacon, egg, and cheese. I love him. He was like, "Well, I'm not dealing with this today." He went to an inn. He's asleep. I was like, "All right, well, if I can't force you to go on this jailbreak journey or whatever." Guy was like, "I'm gonna break him out of jail." So what happened is that he gets into jail, and he unlocks the door. Basically, what happens is Neil distracted a guard, and he was like, "Hey, you suck." And the guard was like, "All right, I'm gonna beat the crap out of this guy."
Okay.
Right.
So create a distraction.
Yeah.
Hey.
While they're beating the crap out of Neil Armstrong, Guy is in the background setting this up, and he was like, "Wait a minute, can I just lockpick these?" And he was like, "I was like, yeah, you just have to do a lockpick thing." And he was like, and he has high lockpick, so he's like, "How many people are in these?" And I was like, "Well, there's one guy in here, there's two guys in here." It's like, "Great, gonna unlock all of them." I was like, "You didn't get to know them yet." And he was like, "I don't care." So he unlocks all of them, and they're all crazy. Yeah. Some of them are, normal people, but there is one insane guy that's in there, and the first thing he does is like a freak, and he attacks one of the guards that's attacking Neil Armstrong and just like stabbing him and stuff with like rocks, and like Neil and Guy were like, "Yep, we did our job here today."
Right.
And Guy, while Neil was doing his cut the line thing, stole from one of the stalls. So he stole some berries that increase speed. So they both ate those. They ran out, and there was this giant cop or whatever. Like there was this cop that was really big and strong, and he was like, he was getting like taken down by some of these guards, and Neil and Guy were like, "Yeah, we're not dealing with that today." So they just ran out, and then they escaped the city. So not only did they cause a ruckus in like two of the cities I set up, they were also seen by a lot of people. So, that might come. I'm not gonna say anything yet.
Right? Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. It's tough when it's fresh like this, and you don't want to give it away.
Obviously, something bad is happening with those cities and their reputation, but
right. That's funny. So, I feel like that happens a lot in like a lot of kind of movies where there's a prison break, and they're like, "Hey, we'll just unlock this guy," and they're like, "You shouldn't," and then he's just the craziest of the craziest. So you say you don't like doing combat. Do you do any combat then? Like, or you permits?
Only when it really because I don't know. I'm not the best like combat sort of. I try to be the best descriptor in combat, but it is turn based and it's sort of slow. Some people, especially with the new guys, they don't really understand how everything really works so far. So it does get really boring when you go into combat. Really, I try to do like descriptors, like like one guy is like, "I want to attack him with my short sword." I'm like, "Well, where do you want to attack him?" He has a shield, he has a sword in one hand, and like, "I want to sweep his leg." So if they sweep his legs, he'll sort of like stagger to the left or something, and he'll go on one knee, and then eventually there's a piece of his armor, like maybe around his neck, that's unexposed. And if you are able to hit that, you'll get extra damage.
Okay.
So I try to do stuff like that. I'm still trying to perfect my combat skills, and it's a little rough, but I think I'm getting there. But I don't know.
Sometimes, like, I know you're super like into the creative and doing things differently, but it might even just be helpful sometimes to just leave it. You can also use that as like a they're only at level 3, but like, for example, if you get to level 5 and they do 2 attacks and one of them hits and one of them misses, then it's up to you. You can describe how it goes. You hit the leg, he goes down, and then you go for the neck, but he brings up the shield in time. Like, you can also like have them just do the basic rolls, and then you can play it off that way, if that might help them kind of understand. What kind of classes like, are they super complicated, like spellcasters again?
One's a rogue.
Right. Okay.
One's a rogue that deals in. They're not. A lot of them aren't really close combat. Really, they're all very off in the background. I did make one close combat like NPC to join their group that I did mention because he's not really important. He's just sort of in the background.
I got you.
Because I play him, but they're all like, because with Neil Armstrong, he's a detective, so he has like the earliest version of what a revolver would be in this sort of world. Okay. To the point where it's sort of like single, like, you know, it's like a snub nose revolver. It's using like musket balls as bullets, and he usually uses that, but he's also in a way like, yeah, and the other guy uses a bow and arrow, and the other one is a wizard.
What do you stat for that? Like a short bow or a crossbow or?
Yeah, so I made it like I based it off of the short bow, but I added a little extra damage because like it is sort of a revolver and it does have a little bit more power back like behind it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and so I just tweaked a little bit of like the bow and arrows sort of like stats. I know there's like muskets and blunderbuss like stuff, but I haven't like been able to. I didn't really find it in when I was working on it. So
I got you. There's I mean, if it helps, like, cause like if you clearly have all the like investigative and role play, you have all that thing down. There's like some good resources that, for me, like I'm a pre-planner. Like when I was DMing, I was like I want to make sure I don't like screw this up. So there's like some good resources that are free, like just like combat balancing stuff and like initiative trackers to help with like you can see all their hit points and stuff, and there's notes you could put in. So like there's ways to move it along. So like if it's something you're interested in like having your players do, probably like just kind of I mean, you know, if they're gonna start crap like fights and you know, burning down trees and stuff, they better learn how to throw down. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
How do you as a player when you do combat? Are you comfortable with it?
As a player, when I do combat, like, I'm comfortable when it comes to me. Like, I usually know what my characters do. But the thing about me when I make characters is I am very fascinated or just enthralled with flaws of a character. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm making a rogue, obviously he's gonna be good at sneak, but the one thing he's gonna be terrible at is probably strength. So sometimes I'll have like a negative modifier to that. Oh, I just like to do it, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like, sometimes I am just the comic relief because I fail on accident, you know, when I do, like, roles. Like,
you try something that you know you're most likely going to fail?
Yeah, there was one time when there was, like, I had to do an acrobatics onto, like, this carriage with one of my players, with, like, one of my characters. And I completely failed. Right. And it was a moving carriage. The carriage left without me. Right. And I was like, well, and my team was on it. I was like, so I just, we were being attacked. So I just ran off into the forest and yeah.
Get out of there.
Eventually I came back, but yeah.
No, I mean, that's honestly playing to those weaknesses is funny. Like I have a turtle wizard, like in the classic like correcting everything wizard, so he's like super smart, but his charisma, actually I have two characters. I have a charisma a -2 and one with a -3, and like I'm still gonna try and persuade people. Like it's still worth it for the try, but like it's stupid, but like that's what makes it funny. So like yeah, I don't know, like you as a person, like you try things that don't work for you, you know, maybe you're, you know, like me, I'm, you know, not the smartest person, but I'll try something to learn, and when that inevitably fails, you know, other things happen. So like that, it makes sense. It actually like will kind of annoy me when people won't play to like, well, your character's dumb as hell. How would they know to do that? Like no, your character's a moron. You have a -2 to intelligence. Like you gotta play that up. You know, I think it's fun to do that kind of stuff, and yeah, I think there's things. I think I might have said this before, but like when we build a party, for some reason we don't plan our characters, we like make them in our own time, and then we're like, hey, my character is, and we all dump the same stat. So it'd be like, hey, I have no charisma, and they're like, oh, I also have no charisma, and so like yeah, so our main group has like no intelligence, and like a bunch of our one shots have like no charisma, or same thing. it's funny to do. So it makes a lot of sense. That's cool. Do you have any other any fun stories you wanna share? You have a little bit more time for maybe like one more if you got one. As a player or a DM or.
As a DM, like right now, I'm drawing a blank, so I don't know if I have any.
That's cool, man.
Oh wait, there was one, and it was sort of like this was at the end. Like this is where the solemn note of my first campaign sort of ended.
Okay.
So they come back. Yeah. So they come back.
Swan song.
They come back with this different group that they joined forces with. The different group lost one of their members, and this main group sort of came back with them. They were badly beaten. They were all like tarnished. And one of my characters was just like a really fun guy. The gargoyle, his name was Pip. So he was like trying to make jokes at night in this town that does not like, weird stuff. So he gets thrown in jail, and while he's in jail, he has the minor illusion spell. So the one thing that he does is that he makes a tiny little house around his head, and he goes, knock, knock, and then he opens the door to his head, and he just kept doing that in his cell, and eventually the guards see this, and then they put him in solitary confinement, and he has a trial, and for, like, death, basically, and... That's where it ended, and it was kind of sad. Yep, and
so I'm guessing the trial didn't go well.
We didn't even get to the trial because I left. Yeah, so it was just so long between then, and we just kind of forgot like what we kind of lost all the character sheets because we were doing this in person.
Right.
Yeah, and yep,
well,
it
I can say this, if there's anything you might want to like with all these writing and these creative ideas, if you like really perfect incorporating combat scenarios in your campaign. I don't know if you've ever heard, but there's websites like I think it's called like the DM's Guild and stuff like that where people sell their homebrews, for like, I bought one for like $5, and like it's something, but if it's there and it's something as creative and unique as that, it's something you might want to look into in the future because you definitely have a cool knack for these very, very unique ideas. So I think with some perfecting and like adding in those other elements, you really could, who knows?
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, cool. Well, anyone who's listening, who has listened, thank you so much. Please, if you like the show, you can follow us on Twitch, or you can follow it wherever you get your podcast. There also now is a support button, so if you want to help me out, you can hit the support button. If you don't, that's okay too. But the follows and the listens are appreciated. If you want to be a guest, one more time, to be a guest, you just email me at youhadtobethere, dndpodcast@gmail.com, DND with the 3 letters. The link is in my descriptions. And this has been You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast with Jack Michael.